The video sequence that I will analyze is taken from The Spirit of the Beehive, a 1973 Spanish film directed by Victor Erice. The story is set right at the beginning of Francisco Franco's dictatorship in 1940 in a village of Castile in Spain. The plot revolves around Ana, a young girl who lives with her distant parents and her older sister, Isabel, in an old manor house. Ana becomes fascinated with the character of Frankenstein from the 1931 James Whale film that she watches with her sister. After seeing it, Isabel tells her sister that the spirit of the monster lives in an abandoned barn in the countryside, and that if she will befriend him, he will show himself to her. Hence, Anna's goal becomes finding the monster. One day, she finds an anti-Franco fugitive hiding in the barn. Believing him the monster from the film, she brings him food and her father's coat to protect himself from the cold. The scene that I chose can be found in the last part of the film. It is right after the killing of the fugitive by the Francoist local police. The police gives back to Fernando, Anna's father, his coat and a carry-on pocket watch found beside the dead man. The father has no idea how his coat and watch have been given to the Republican escapee, but decides to test his daughter's reactions to see if they had anything to do with the matter. The mise-en-scène is very simple and meager. The characters are all sitting at a table, having breakfast together. The father, Fernando, is smoking, and the mother, Teresa, is drinking coffee, along with their two daughters, Isabel and Ana, that are blowing on the hot milk in the bowls. The main color that dominates the film sequence is yellow, in its many shades, which is created by the light that filters through the yellow windows that have the honeycomb motifs on them. The windows are often featured in the scenes of the film, and they are usually behind Fernando or Ana. They are an allegory of the Francoist limitations imposed on Spaniards, especially in the early years of his rule. In this particular scene, the honeycombed yellow windows appear behind the back of the father of the two girls. Throughout the film, despite the vagueness of the information provided about the main characters, it is possible to guess that Fernando used to be a man of letters and was a friend of Miguel de Unamuno, a famous Republican writer. Now, he is unable to pursue his occupation, burned by Franco's censorship and radical ideas. One could say, in fact, that aside the Republican fugitive that has been killed, Fernando is one of the most oppressed characters in the film, and an indicator of such a condition can actually be the honeycombed windows. Additionally, in this scene, Fernando is particularly stressed, even though he does not openly share what he feels with his family, because of the fear of getting in trouble after his coat and watch have been found in the hands of a person considered a criminal. Also, the sequence presents no dialogue at all. The characters do not talk to one another, they are silent. The main language used here are the glances, the looks they give to each other. The only sounds that are featured are diegetic, such as Isabel's coughing, the delicate sound of Anna's blowing into the bowl, the bells of the church outside of the interiors of the house, and the room tone. Also, what catches the attention of the spectator and of Anna in the video sequence is the melody of Fernando's pocket watch. In this case, it is a tool to both discover the truth for him and to trigger Anna's mind for her to realize that something is wrong with her friend in the barn. As I said before, the characters are all sitting at a table without saying anything. The camera angle captures each of them by point of view shots, the majority of them from Fernando's point of view. Although, at the end of the sequence, Fernando is filmed through an eye-level shot, with the camera getting closer to him in order to catch his reactions and facial expressions. Additionally, the camera angles are sometimes confusing about the position of the characters at the table. The only certainty is that Fernando is sitting in the middle of the table and looks at each of the women of his family sitting around the table. It is important to observe that the sequence I took under analysis starts and ends in a peculiar way, by dissolving the first shot onto another one, as the second shot fades in. It almost seems like the director decided to divide one sequence from the next one, but still wanted to show a strong connection between them. It is possible to highlight a particular moment when Fernando and Anna exchange some intense looks. The editing technique used in this case is the reverse shot edit. It is usually utilized for conversation between characters, but since there is no verbal interaction between them, they just look at each other ambiguously. In this instance, the transition between shots is more rapid than the other shots of the sequence, in order to emphasize the silent dialogue that Anna and her father exchange in that moment. Through the cuts that have been made in the shots where Fernando looks at his two daughters, it almost looks like he is looking for an answer from them, in an indirect way. He seems to be searching for a hint from them, and, ultimately, decides to break them with the melodic sounds of the pocket watch. The only one that reacts to it is Anna, who looks deeply at him. For what concerns the mother figure, Teresa, there is not much to say, except noticing her significant distance towards her daughters and husband, both in this sequence and for the whole film. For the entire duration of the video sequence, she does not raise her eyes from her coffee cup. The only element that makes her look up to her husband is the music that his pocket watch produces. Since she does not exchange any looks with anybody present at the table, and is captured less by the camera, her position is even more remote from the family unit. If her shots were removed from the sequence, no one would notice her absence. Despite the fact that these scenes lack of words, it is the only film sequence where all the main characters and members of the family are all gathered together. The main interaction is between Fernando and the little Anna. He does not want to use directness or to be harsh towards his daughters, but he has to know the truth about who had anything to do with the now dead man and Anna's imaginary Frankenstein. It is interesting to see how and which strategy he uses to accomplish his goal. Not every father would have behaved like that in such a serious situation. This alternative father-daughter dialogue is well conveyed through a reverse shot edit between the two looking at each other. The sequence is a perfect example of the possibility of communicating without the use of words. It is also a great explanation of the relationship between all the family members, distant, uneasy, and not completely honest between them, with the exception of the two sisters that are good friends. Their family situation might be also a metaphor for the Spanish condition of the time, divided, suffering, dominated by an atmosphere of mistrust and oppression.